We'll get started in about 1 minute. If you haven't put your name over in the chat and where you're from, would you do that for us? Welcome. This is real informal, so make yourselves at home. Thanks for being here, everybody. Hopefully you can see me and you can hear me. This is my first time leading a chat like this without the assistance. So bear with me as I play around with this and see how it goes. As we go through this, just know that this is a new thing for middle school leaders because we've been listening and it sounds like middle school has a different need set than secondary. So we'll play along in these zones as we go through. We also have participants trying to get in, so I'm going to try to admit them as I'm facilitating this and going through these pieces as well. So welcome. Just a few things to note as we go before we begin. If you haven't put your name over in the side and where you're from, that would be great if you would do that for us. Just keep yourself muted. If you want to say something in the chat box, I'll look over that and I'll try to unmute you as fast as I can. It looks like we have over 100 people within the chat room today. So we'll navigate that and I'll try to figure out how to get everybody's voice heard if you so choose. We'll also have a recording and we'll pass that out to you by tomorrow. So if you would remain muted, that would be perfect. Also, remember that chat feature is there for questions, ideas, thoughts, contributions that you have. And if you have any ideas on how MASSP can support middle school leaders, know that we're here for you. Shoot me an email, shoot Wendy an email. Her address is Wendy at Michigan Principals as well, or tweet me or MASSP as well as we move through this. And here's our outcome and our overview for today. So just a welcome, get you going. Hearing from our leaders, we've got a panelist of 6. Reflect and connect, and then naming our outcomes for our time together. So here's some things to think about as we engage in some of this work as some big themes of transitions. Know your community, know your traditions. We know if we start to go overboard with some things, we freak people out pretty fast. So know your stakeholders. The other one is the capacity of your people. The flexibility, skills, knowledge of your stakeholders, their dispositions as you think about your transitions. Know your influencers. You know those people who are on your side. You know those people who have covert powers, perhaps, that you might need to get on your side, and how will you use them to benefit you and your system as you move forward. The other one is survey your students, parents, and staff. What are their needs during this time and keeping them on board and feeling like they're part of the crew? The other one is how do you connect with elementary, secondary, central office before making a decision. The other one that's up here is think about the things that you've always wanted to do, whether it's scheduling ceremonies. It might be time to try some of those things out, or at least throw the ideas out on the table. The other one is think about what you remember about your middle school and then start playing around with those. I know for myself, I remember the theme songs that we had that the class got to vote on, like simple things, but I couldn't tell you what the room looked like, the decorations looked like, or any of those types of things, or even who spoke at it. But I do remember some of the other pieces. The other one is just simply this: it's not a competition. So do what you can do for yourself, and remember that it's not a competition, it's all about the kids. So we have a panelist of 6 today, and they are from all over the state, including California. So we have Jason, we have Nina, Mike, John, Michael, and we have Bree that will be with us. Each of them will be speaking for approximately 5 to 7 to 10 minutes. And I'll unmute them as soon as I figure out how to get this transition slide out and get back to the other screen. So if you bear with me for 1 moment, and it looks like we've got about 70 people that we have to admit to the room. We will get on that, and Jason will be our first panelist. So.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. What a great opportunity for us as middle school educators to have our own area. Steve is exactly right. I've been in a lot of the MASSP Leader2Leaders and everything else with high school folks, and there's some great ideas and some wonderful learning that's happened there. But our needs are different, and so that was one of the things that I thought was really important with us being able to do this today, is to really kind of look at some of the middle school needs and how it is different than high school. And it's kind of interesting as we jump into this new phase and trying to teach our students online. We know that our middle school kids are different, and we know that they need more. They need a different type of intention. And so I think that's kind of where I'm going to jump off and kind of share our experience at Portage. I'm at Portage West Middle School. I have a student population of about 730 students, 6th through 8th grade. I am very fortunate. I have 2 other middle schools that are in my district as well. So there's 3 middle school principals. And I think the best thing that's happened for us is the 3 of us have worked so closely together throughout this process, because that was a big concern that we have. It's not a competition was the last thing that Steve put up there on this slide. And that was a real concern, is that in our own community, would people be looking and comparing what the experience was depending on which school you went to? We also knew and heard really early on about what other people were doing and other things. So I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I've taken from this, is that everyone has to do this plan to fit their community the best way that they possibly can. There's no single plan. There's no one way to do this. And so luckily for us, or lucky for me, I had to work with 2 great partners who helped us develop, kind of roll out what our middle school plan for this was. We kicked off on Monday. So our first day of, the 4th marking period for us was Monday, and it went off really well. And I think part of that was because we did a really good job of communicating. We communicated at several different levels. We had the district communication. We had a building communication that went out with a letter from the 3 middle school principals. And then I think the biggest success piece that we had, and it's something that we all know, middle school kids crave and need relationship, and they are missing that relationship with their teachers. And so at each of the middle schools, we kind of divvied up, and each teacher got a point of contact student that would be theirs. So we saw the success our 8 elementary schools were having, because their elementary teacher was able to connect with their families so easily. And we thought, how are we going to do that with students that have 7 classes? And, is the family going to hear from every one of their teachers each week? That was a real issue for us. We were like, many of our families had reported to us they're feeling overwhelmed with the communications and everything else that were coming to them, and what to do and everything else. So we've rolled out, and each of our teachers has between 18 and 20 students that is theirs to connect with. They're the point of contact teacher. They're the one so they actually reached out, and the very first time they contacted the parent and had conversations with the parent. They're still ongoing, and they're also connecting with each time for the next 7 weeks. They're going to at least once a week check in with the student to see how they're doing with the assignments that we're posting and everything else as we work through this. So I honestly feel like, and the feedback we got early on from parents was that was the best thing in the whole plan, is that they had one point of contact person. They had one teacher that was already reached out and talked with them. So if you haven't tried to figure out how to take your middle school and kind of get that, feeling for your parents, I think it's something that's really important. That's that relationship too. We used a method where teachers got to select their students because we wanted them to try to select students they had a relationship with. We did not, we looked at a ton of different ways to do this by everyone take your first hour class. And in the end, it was more work, but well worth it for our teachers to select students that they had a relationship with. The students were really excited when their point of contact teacher reached out to them. And they have a couple different ways that they're setting up to talk with them. They can make a phone call. We've set up, almost all of our teachers have set up with Google Voice.
Good, how are you?
And they communicated that ahead of time with their students to let them know that you may get a phone call from a strange area with Google Voice, but they are able to do that. We're communicating through email and making sure that's two-way so that there's a response back.
Can you do me a
that's
favor
really
when
important.
you contact those
We've
kids
learned
each
this
day or
early
each
on.
week,
Just sending an
can you,
email is not
put it on the log
communication,
for
but
Mark,
the response
the one that
back,
Mark sent out?
that causing them to get back in touch
Okay.
with us has been really important. And then the last thing is they've set up not only their own office hours, which students in any of their classes can pop into, but they've set up Google Meets for their point of contact students, so they can all come in if they just want to connect with the teacher and everything else. I think that this first week, the lessons that we've learned, kids want to connect. kids hopped into office hours just to see the teacher and say hi more often than ask any type of question. And I thought that was really important. We did have to, you should set up some rules for office hours and some things, help kids understand the expectations a little bit. Early on, a lot of students popped in and like hung out for the teacher's entire office hour. So trying to help them understand that that's probably not, the best way to, spend that time. If they've got a question, they can pop in. If they want to say hi, to pop in. But kids are craving the opportunity just to connect. We did decide to, as a district, we are using truly just only Google Meets. We decided that we walked away from Zoom just because of some of the security issues and everything else. So everything is set up in Google Meets. We are tracking all of our student contacts on one sheet, so all the teachers can see who the point of contact person is. So if you didn't get an assignment from a student, or if something's going on with a student, that teacher can get with the point of contact teacher. So we've had great success in the first week in rolling this out, using that method. I guess the next thing that we're trying to test drive through here is the students that don't have access to, each one of we're a one-to-one, so each one of our students has a Chromebook. That was interesting. Something that really I always knew was a problem, but really turned out to be a problem, is how many kids actually don't have any idea where their $240 Chromebook is. Came up early on, and we fished a lot of those out of the building for families, and still looking for some. As you know, middle school kids are not the most responsible with their things, and so we're still working through that process. But if they needed the low-tech option, meaning their family couldn't connect, if they couldn't do those things, we've developed a plan. We do packets for them. We're working with families. We are actually delivering the packets to their homes. So we have delivery drivers. It's just a drop off at the front, just like you would get a UPS package. We let the families know when those packages are coming, so that they know that they're there. And then the part that we're working through right now is we're trying to work with every family to be able to use their smartphone or some way to take a picture and send it back to us, so that we don't have to pick it back up. And so I think that's kind of where we're working at. And I encourage everyone, just know that I think at first I was overwhelmed with the idea of, man, am I doing enough? Am I doing everything I possibly can? Am I keeping up with the Joneses? And as soon as I stopped worrying about what the district next to us was doing and just focused in on what we're doing, it helped me tremendously. I've had lots of parents contact me, and it's so interesting because it's both ends of the spectrum. Yesterday alone, I had a phone call with a family that was so overwhelmed with what we were doing and just needed some permission with what was going on in their homes to make some choices on what they were going to have their kids do. The next phone call was with someone that was so underwhelmed with the things that we're doing and can't believe that teachers and our school wasn't doing more. So please know that that's happening everywhere, and that you should be, just understand that we're in a time where we're not going to be able to get everyone in this happy medium. And that's helped me a lot, is coming to that conclusion, because early on I just felt a lot of pressure to keep up or make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can. And in the end, you just have to be thinking about what you can do best for your kids. So I think that's it, Steve. I don't know if there's anything else.
No, thank you so much for that. It brings up the big idea of be patient, go slow, think, and know that something's always going to be thrown at you. It's about how we react to it. Nina is not going to be able to be with us. She just got called into a meeting. So Mike, do you mind going next? And I will unmute you. I'm trying to get people as they come in to mute them in. I've got the screen going now. So thanks for everybody with your patience as we move forward. Mike, you're on.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Mike Hart. I am the principal of O.J.D. Young Middle School in Ludington. We're a school of about 540 students in grades 6 through 8. We are the lone middle school here in town, but we have had the opportunity to collaborate with all of the other schools within our educational service district. We have an ESD, not an ISD, so we've had some good opportunities, and I do see some of my West Shore ESD friends here with us, so it's good to see them here. I've also connected a lot. I used to teach and then work in central office in Fairfax County, Virginia, which is a slightly different district than Ludington with about 190,000 students. So I've connected with the principals and teachers that I work with there as well. We too are lucky to be a one-to-one district here in Ludington, utilizing Canvas as our learning management system. And that's been something that a lot of our families are using, although I will say, being here on the west side of the state in a fairly rural area, a lot of families don't have access to high quality internet. So we are a mixed media continuity of learning plan. This is week 2. I couldn't be more proud of what our students and teachers are doing with all of this. I think, just as Jason said, it's communication, communication, communication. We are using the Google Meets as a means for teachers and students to have those office hours and just to connect with each other. I too am jumping in on those just to see kids, because we didn't get into this business to sit at home in our offices and not interact with kids. So I've enjoyed the opportunity to go into classes, and I'm trying really hard not to hijack them from my teachers, but I just am getting so excited to interact with students too. So that's been a really fun thing. We're using Facebook, we're using Twitter. I have a YouTube channel, sending out messages through our Power School, but we're trying to be careful to not inundate families with those communication messages. The most fun thing that I've done in communicating, though, is I've collaborated with our 3-5 building principal, and we're doing, much like John Krasinski has done, Some Good News. We have Some Good News in Ludington that we're doing each week and bringing in community members as guest speakers, and we're goofballs and we're having a lot of fun with it. So that's been something that we've really, truly enjoyed. As I said, this is our second week, and I think families are starting to get the flow of it. So if you're just starting this week, it gets easier as it goes. We've had lots of questions last week, and those questions have dissipated quite a bit, although I'm going to echo Jason's sentiments as well. I've had 2 contacts with parents today. One was really mad that we don't have more work for their student, and one said, my kid can't do any of this work. What can you do to help? So we do have to find that balance there. Thinking administratively right now, the thing that my assistant principal, my counseling team, and I are really working on is, what does the transition look like for our students that are coming to us from the elementary school? We would have been hosting this week our parent night and getting all of the schedules done with them. So now we're thinking, how do we do this in a virtual format? We're going to bring in our Michigan Middle School Leadership Initiative, MMLI student leaders, to come in and kind of be a panel on a Zoom call for our rising 6th graders and their families to answer questions about the middle school experience, because it is a vastly different experience than what it is in 3-5, even in a small community like here in Ludington. We're also thinking about our 8th graders that are moving on to Ludington High School. They've already had their rite of passage. We do an 8th grade camp week-long experience in September of each year. And we're trying to think of what's that going to look like for our 8th graders next year, because we don't know if September 21st is going to be a great time for our students to go away and sleep in cabins for a week. So that's something that's weighing heavy on our minds right now as well. And then we're also thinking of ways to continue to increase the student ownership in everything that's happening in our school. I did mention MMLI. Those students create different opportunities for our student body and our community to come together. Things like they've hosted a concert where they brought in lots of local musicians and raised funds for the childhood cancer campaign. The former health teacher in me was ecstatic that we had a mental health day the week before school let out. Their timing couldn't have been more impeccable on that, but we want to find more ways for that group to serve as more of an advisory board for us as principals moving forward. So we're trying to maintain and do the best that we can with the situation that we're facing, while also thinking forward to next year. How do we continue to grow in our practice of really making the students have more ownership in our building and have those connections both remotely and once we get back to school? So I'm excited to hear more about what our other middle level educators have to say here in the great state of Michigan. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Mike, for sharing and giving us some perspectives on what the current realities are and what we're probably all facing. Our next person, John, is not available. He was called into another meeting too. You all know how this goes. So we just adapt and we go with the flow. So Michael, would you mind joining us? Mike is actually, he joined us via Twitter and said, hey, you mind if I join from California? And we said, of course not. Let's get some other perspectives. So Mike is joining us from California. And Mike, your turn to jump on in.
Hey everybody, good morning, or I guess over there it's probably good afternoon for you guys over there. It's still morning for us over here in California. So thanks, Steve, for letting me join the meeting this morning. Again, I'm hearing some great things already from Jason and Mike, what they're doing in their schools that I can kind of borrow and borrow and steal and take with me over here in California. My school, it's Joe Baca Middle School. It's about 900 kids, 7th and 8th graders only. Also too, we are actually in our 3rd week of distance learning. We started, we're fourth week of our quarter, but 3rd week of distance learning. We've actually transitioned pretty well into our distance learning program. We are a 1-to-1 school as kind of like Jason's is. However, though, we did find out, after we've got Chromebooks out, of course, about internet connection issues. And one of the things that we really ran into was in our community, we do have some larger families. So we may have 3 or 4 families that are doing distance learning at the same time. And so as a result of that, we're having broadband issues at the house. And then parents are calling and saying, what am I supposed to do? My kids can't get onto their WebEx. We use WebEx, not Zoom. WebEx is a little more safer. It's a Cisco meeting system, or of course, Google Meets. But anyway, so one of the problems has been though, is like when teachers are either uploading their lessons to their web pages, their broadband's not good enough to watch the lesson or to interact in that Zoom, or not Zoom, but WebEx meeting. So we've had issues with that. So what we did is actually our district purchased 3,000 hotspots through T-Mobile with a 25 gig ability each month. So what we've been doing this last week, actually this past week, is all the kids, I've had about 60 so far have come in and picked up Google hotspots, or not Google, but hotspots, I should say, so that way can have their own access to the through their Chromebook to the curriculum, which has been great. That's really helped a lot of our things. Also, too, it looks like one of the chat people popped into. That was the other concern we've been having, is that the novelty's kind of worn off with our kids. That first week, they were super excited to get on, and like Jason said, they wanted to see their teachers. They wanted to have that interaction. And then now they're kind of slowly, I think we've been tracking it, of the 900 kids I've had, I have 800 kids actually interacting in online, some way, shape, or form. However, though, the participation though within like those live lessons has gone from like 800 to 750 to 700 to 620 to so that's been kind of and it's been challenging, but the one thing I've been trying to tell the staff is to not take it personally, that we have to remember that this is not true online learning. This is actually learning at home in a traumatic experience. And so this is not like we're having, kids at home by themselves in a small environment where they can actually put this work in. They're actually in a house, with their mom and dad, potentially, their brothers and sisters, maybe aunts and uncles, walking behind them, walking near them, or two, they have to make sure that their little brothers and sisters, especially the middle school kids, are getting their distance learning done first, and then they get to go on and do their distance learning later. That we have to remember that. We have to have grace for ourselves as far as the educators are concerned, and remember have some grace for these kids, because again, they're learning in an environment that they're not accustomed to, and one that they didn't even ask for. So we just have to kind of remember those kind of components. Now, kind of moving on to what Mike was saying too about transitioning. What we've done is we've actually started to create a Google Classroom for next year's 2020-2021 incoming 7th graders. And it's going to be a parent/student resource. And so what we've done is in that Google Classroom, I have like Avid, ASB, my counselors are all making different pieces of it. And then we're going to make that live out to all of the parents. And I'm not sure, Steve, is it okay if I share my screen? So this is the example of it. So this is our 2020-2021 7th grade orientation Google Classroom. And so we have our welcome here, and then there's already hot links in there as far as like what it's going to be. And I'm actually going to record over that as well and make it just like it would be for our parent night. And then I'm also gonna have a report recorded in Spanish too, because we actually have 300 of our kids, our parents are Spanish speaking. So we're gonna do it in both languages. So it's a tool and resource for our parents there. Our AVID and ASB are gonna be working on links on it as well. Our school clubs are working on it. Our counselors have already made a counselor's corner in here. So that way the parents can know what their 6-year academic plan is and how JPMS, our counseling, works at our school. As well as our parent engagement. We have a community liaison that will be putting some stuff in here too for how to get involved at the school, volunteering, school site council, ELAC. And of course, a really hot one that we need to make sure on there is special education. So our special education people are gonna be putting also a link in there as well to help identify how special education looks in a middle school. Because our parents are always struggling with how that works in middle. Because in elementary, it's really easy. They've got one teacher. But when they go to middle school, how does special education RSP work with 7 teachers? So we're making that Google Classroom for all of our parents now for next year. And that's kind of how we're working on that transition. I hope that helps Mike out a little bit as far as just some ideas. So that's something that we're definitely doing there. Something else that we are currently working on too is all of our teachers are in Google Classroom. And so that's been something where they can actually email kids easily. And then also too, I think Jason was talking to you about how, making sure we had that interaction between students and parents, or students and teachers, I should say. What we've done too is we've actually created group emails by period for each teacher. So they can actually email their periods and do check-ins with them by period. And then they have that email ability now to go back and forth. Just in case they're not able to, use the phone, because all kids have cell phones, it seems like, in some way, shape, or form, and they have an easier way to respond to email for check-ins. So that's been something that's been a great tool for our teachers, being able to email by period and not 180 kids in one email. They can do 20, 25 per period. So that's been super helpful. And then also too, what I do is, and I'm sure Steve follows me on Twitter, and I have all kinds of crazy stuff on my Twitter account. So I do usually weekly PSA announcements as far as like food distribution, Chromebook replacement on my Twitter to the community. I also do too wacky videos on Wednesdays to make sure that our community is still smiling and having fun. So there's all kinds of stuff that, we do at Joe Baca that we're just trying again to keep that community spirits up, and as well as keeping, our kids engaged and our teachers pumped up, because that's the last piece, right? Our teachers are feeling that frustration in regards to, like I said, we're in week 3, going to week 4, and some of my teachers are upset because they'll do a live chat and, 3 kids show up. And so they're just like, how do I overcome that? I'm just like, you can't, don't bank on that. I just explained to them the fact that you care so much that no one's showing up makes me love you even more as a teacher, because if you didn't care, then you just wouldn't even tell me. So don't even stress on that. You have to give yourself grace and just remember that, it is what it is right now, and just do your best to reach these kids. So, and the last thing that I do too is kind of banking on that Google Classroom that was for the parents for next year. I actually have a Google Classroom that's for teachers. And that's where I actually do all my information out. And I'll share that with you guys too, so you can kind of take a quick look at that. So we have a Google Classroom that's just for staff. And so on it, there is the information for next school year. So they're aware of what's going on with like master schedule, next year's budget already. There's also the bulletins I put in there for each week still to kind of give some normalcy to the week, even though I know that we're not doing the, typical in brick and mortar stuff. I do a ton of tension breakers for teachers. So like right now we're doing a staff cookbook. We've done TV shows, surveys, just to keep, things in so that the staff can still feel connected. We have things for support. So I'll put in their outreach logs for students and how we're outreaching students in one location so teachers have access to it. Just multiple things in there. Staff needs, a survey, so I figure out what the staff needs are. And then counseling supports are built in there. And then special education supports for the staff. And then classified information, because I think some things we forget about is the classified staff needs information too. We're really focused on teachers, so I have a classified section to help with classified information getting out there. And then lessons, student communication. So those are just some examples that we're using over here to definitely make sure that we're keeping everybody informed. And this time, I would say that over communication, there's no such thing. We definitely have to make sure that we're getting everybody on the same page and keeping everybody in the loop. So again, sorry for hijacking with some screenshots, but I just want to, it's easier to share it and see what it looks like compared to talking about it. So, and then again, if you need or want to access any of that stuff, let me know and I'll gladly share it with you and you can kind of take a look through it. I don't mind. I'll make you a student in there and you can definitely do it. Feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat bar if needed. But again, we're all in this together. It doesn't matter if we're in Michigan or in California, but we're all in this together. And I just want to make sure I'm here to help support anybody out there who needs it.
Thanks so much. And by the way, you didn't hijack anything. I'm just looking at how you navigated the platform too and thinking, man, I wish I had some of those skills. Makes me think what our teachers go through on a daily basis and how we think we know something until it actually comes in front of us and we have to do it in the moment and nerves kick in and all that good stuff. So thanks for sharing that. The other person that we had in the schedule to speak was not able to be here either. So we get pulled out all the time, but it does say over in the bottom there that Susie wanted to share. So Susie, I'm going to unmute you, or you can unmute yourself, and then go ahead and share with us what's on your mind. Thanks for offering up. Anybody else want to share? Throw it over in the chat and we'll get you going.
Hi there. So I'm Susie Eisner. I'm from the Oakland County area, West Bloomfield, and we actually jumped right in. So school was canceled Thursday night. We had staff planned Friday, and we launched on Monday right after. And of course, there have been a number of iterations since then. But we have found, like Michael pointed out, that the engagement on the live sessions does seem to dwindle. And so one of the things that we're going to pilot starting next week is we do have some, we call them paraprofessionals. I'm guessing every district and every school system calls them something different, but they're teacher aides. And typically they've worked in our self-contained AICI program, but those students don't need full day support right now. And those staff members are desperate to feel needed and useful and contribute. And so we've assigned each paraprofessional, we have 5 that are available to us in our building. We're a 6-8, and we have about 550 students currently. So we're assigning each one a subject area, including electives. And then in their PLC meetings, they will be coming up with a list of maybe 4 kids per grade level that are kids that have previously been engaged, are maybe completing attendance forms, but not completing work and not attending Zooms. And that para is going to be their conduit. She's going to call. Teachers have sent emails and we've sent emails, but she's going to call. She's going to say, I'm going to be on the Zoom with you, and then I'm going to support you after. And we're going to try and build attendance that way. And I can't tell you whether it works because we're just starting that. And then we'll keep a grid across grade levels and across departments to make sure that one child isn't getting called by 4 different adults in 1 week. And we're hoping that that will increase. We also have some teachers who, when they get on the Zoom and are doing a Kahoot review for content from last week, are then telling the kids, okay, text your friends. We need more friends to play Kahoot, meaning friends in the class. So that's a strategy that we've used as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Susie. Anybody else have something to add or wish to add? Go ahead and unmute yourself and join in. Otherwise, what we can do is, actually, it looks like Tim Sanchez, you want to share? Go ahead and unmute yourself and jump on in. Thank you, sir.
Hey, everybody. How we doing? Am I on here? Am I live? All right, perfect. So this is week 2 for us as well. And a few things that we learned from the end of last week and then specifically on Monday of this week were Google Classroom was pretty brand new to our teachers. We also have a Google Classroom with our teachers, and that's a great strategy to have. But a lot of our teachers just didn't utilize it. So Google Classroom is very new for our kids and for our staff. So a few things that we found were every teacher kind of assigned assignments differently, and it was confusing for our kids to figure out what's actually due. When do I need to turn this in? Am I done with all of my work? Some teachers put it in the stream, and some teachers put it in classwork. Some teachers gave due dates, and some did not. So what we did, if I could share my screen, I'll share my screen. We wanted to make it uniform for our kids. So I created a video to teach our teachers how to, in topics, to assign it by week. And then also to give it an order. So either here's a suggested of Monday, Wednesday, Friday to do, or to just number them. And so like immediately after this, we got a lot of positive feedback from the kids and from the parents saying this is so much easier for our kids now. Because some of our kids, you probably don't have any of these kids in your guys' class, in your guys' schools, but we have some kids who are looking for any excuse not to do it, right? And so they open it up, I don't know what to do, and they immediately close it down. Whereas some kids are just going to persevere and they're going to figure it out regardless of how we have set it up. So this is now, we want it to be uniform. So all of our teachers will do it by week and day, and then put it in the order that it needs to be done. And then the other problem we had were our kids were actually doing the work, but they didn't understand how to turn it in Google Docs or in Google Classroom, because there are actually 5 different ways to turn in something. There may be more, but a PDF and a document are turned in a different way. Sheets and a video would be turned in a different way. And then the same thing with a form. Form's actually the easiest. But so again, I created a video for them to also share with their kids so that the kids understand how to turn something in, and so it marks on their on the teacher so they understand if somebody is done or not. And then the one last thing I just wanted to share that was very useful for us, Kami. Again, there's all kinds of software out there, but Kami, K-A-M-I, is a PDF manipulator and right now, if you like email them, you can get it for your district for free. And it's very, very, very powerful PDF editor. You can film yourself, you can put video clippings on there. And so I also created a little bit of a video tutorial for our teachers and for our kids of how to actually use Kami. I've used it myself because on our Chromebooks, you can't get Adobe Reader. So Kami has worked very well, and unlock all of the premium version is huge, especially when it's free. And so most of our teachers are doing that. So that's very helpful we have a lot of teachers that are still doing the worksheets. And so this allows them to not have to change as much, although I do like pushing them outside of their comfort zone, but they can, do the PDF. If you have special ed kids, they can highlight it. It'll read to them. They can click the text box. You can talk and it'll type it out for them. So a lot of neat things that go along with Kami. So those are some of the things that we learned in the first week and a half here. So, but I appreciate all the other stuff that we heard too. That's very helpful.
Thanks, Tim. It isn't like what everybody's saying, trial and error. What works today might not work tomorrow. Flexibility, adaptivity, all of those great things coming into play. Let's do this. I'm going to push you out into breakout rooms. It sounds like a huge interest, perhaps going, if you want to do this next week, would be to talk about learning plans. What's working, what's not working with online systems, perhaps with packets, curriculum, how to get teachers to collaborate, communication. All those pieces of what's working, what might you appreciate support with, and that might be our focus for next week. If you're interested in being a panelist for that, we can follow the same type of a format. Email me and we'll get you on that, and we'll make sure that we'll do it at the same time next week, just to hear your voice and make sure middle level pieces are figured out. Also, a lot of folks, when I was asking them what their transition plans were for 8th graders, for students coming in, they just weren't sure yet. So if you're not sure yet, take that time to brainstorm. And if you have ideas, shoot them our way. And we'll just make this a true collaborative event to figure out how to move forward with middle school folks. So let me throw you into a breakout, maybe for 5 to 10 minutes, and then pull you back in and we'll conclude together today. So let me go ahead and get this going, and we'll send you out into those rooms and then come back together. Looks like we're getting everybody back. So thanks for that breakout. Hopefully it was worth your time to reconnect with somebody. Again, we will post this live video to MASSP, give you a summary of anything that was in the chat, as well as these PowerPoint slides. If you have any questions for the group, just email me and I'll make sure that those get to the team. And then we can even create some type of other chat to make sure that the conversation keeps going. So a few things. First, thanks for your leadership. It is not easy. I can imagine being in your shoes, having kids at home, having family members at home, leading buildings, leading teachers, getting everything organized. So thank you for all that you're doing. Just remember to take time for yourself. This too shall pass and we'll learn something from it. The other one is, I just put this one in here based on what the feedback was, is thinking about next week and learning plans, what's working, your online systems, your curriculum, your packets, teacher collaboration, staff communication. If some of you have plans around how you're transitioning students in and out of your building, that'd be a great opportunity to bring those ideas forward. So feel free to shoot that email to me or tweet me if you'd prefer to be part of the panel, because we'd appreciate that. Again, you don't have to be an expert, not looking for any expertise, just sharing of thinking. The other one is just always thinking about your community, your stakeholders. What I've learned, and I'm sure you have, is my plan sounds really good in my brain until I start passing it by some other people. And then they start tearing it up a little bit. So there's no ownership to it. It's just saying, how do we make this the best plan? So how do you gather feedback from your students, from your parents, from your colleagues, especially those people who might push back on the thinking? How do you get them involved from the onset so they're not stirring the pot before the hand, but they feel like they're part of the system? The other one, again, if you have ideas on any way that MASSP can support you as middle level leaders, let us know. We're looking for continuous ways to support you, whether it's having a specific professional development design, maybe a day or two for middle school level leaders, whether it's these types of things, whatever it might be, we're looking for those opportunities to support you. So give me a holler and we'll make sure that we make a list of those things and start planning forward with those pieces. The other one, just remember, we're in the middle with you. We don't have all the answers, but we have people like you that we can access, get access to one another from. So we can connect people that have the expertise necessary to push thinking forward. With that, I personally say thank you to all of you for your leadership. Get in contact with us, and if you have anything you want to share, feel free to do so. Otherwise, you are free to go, and we ended about 8 minutes early. When does that ever happen? So thanks for your dedication. If there's anything we can do, give us a holler, let us know, and make the best of today and the rest of your week. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.